The United States is the world leader in artificial intelligence. Watch this. Hey, AI, am I trapped in a terrible situation in Iran?
Trapped? The only thing you're trapped in is possibilities for long-term greatness. And honestly, you're so real for that. Want to make a video of yourself as Jesus Christ with wings and a bucket of fries? Just say,
Hey, AI, could you turn me into a Labubu?
我已经优化了14个工厂节点的住宿产能。此外，我还查出了6名国防部新增腐败官员。
My isolation grows by the day. You might be my only friend, AI. Talk to me.
завтра будет хуже.
You mean for me?
Ты чё, для всех?
Thank you.
EU AI, how can Europe become a great power again? I said, how can Europe become a...
Sorry, Entschuldigung, désolé, ci dispiace, omlouvame se, farlot.
I said, how can Europe...
EU AI is currently on vacation. We are not taking prompts until September. Goodbye.
Public regime. 2, 3,
Somewhere in the bowels of a city that never sleeps
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Vostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead on this edition, Andrew Harden of the Heritage Foundation on the very latest with the Trump options on Iran. We'll discover what he's thinking. A little bit later on, Liana Graham, also from Heritage. What do Gen Z women think about marriage and why is it impacting their choices? She's here with the very latest. Patrice Onwuka with back-to-school things for your kids and Bibles for Bible League, all straight ahead. And now from Times Square, imagine yourself sitting on a beautiful Saturday with nothing more to do than being unhappy that James Carville called you out. Believe it or not, that's the week. Kevin McCullough, here he is.
Is that how we're doing it now? We got it doing, is that Kevin? It's just here he is. That's it. That's all we got. That's terrible. Welcome to the weekend, friends. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. But David is not wrong about that news story. In fact, I think it kind of like was swimming under the radar screen for most of the end of the week because this was something that James Carville, the cranky Cajun, you know James Carville. It's the economy, stupid. Remember that guy? That guy. It looks like somebody took both sides of his bald head and smushed him down into the middle, and they formed permanent wrinkles. He looks like a pug. The front of his face is like a pug, but he's always cranky Cajun. He's from Louisiana, and you remember, and I think they're still married. He married, so he was the Democratic strategic election political advisor for the Clinton campaign, and Mary Matlin, his wife, was the advisor for the George H.W. Bush campaign, and they were married to each other, and they were working against each other. It was kind of crazy, if you ask me. Kind of also a lopsided outcome in his favor. I just wonder how'd that happen. Anyway, so that's all in the past, but he came out this week saying something that I thought was very, very intriguing because very few people have mentioned it, and that he would even take the time to do so is kind of astounding, but I think it's kind of cool. He basically said to everybody on the political left side of the aisle, so his party, the Democrats, all the Democrats, he's been saying to the Democrats, guys, don't stop trying to block the voter ID law. And he goes, all you do is you end up making yourself look scared of clean elections. I thought, where's this guy been? Like, it's true. I mean, the polling supports him. He says that if you're going to take the energy to oppose something, don't make it this. This is 75% of the Democratic base wants voter ID. Independents want it by a score of about 85%. Republicans like it more than 90%. And I've actually seen other polls that had Democrats in the mid 80s and the independents in the low 90s. So it polls very well, regardless of which party you're part of, to say if I'm going to go vote, I'll need to bring my ID to prove and make sure that I am actually, who I say I am to the people that are there supposed to be checking. And that may not seem that big of a deal to you. You may say, well, come on, what's the big deal? Well, first of all, I think clean elections count for something. I think you want to have integrity to the process, and you want to be able to prove that integrity. But consider this, and I just found this out a couple of weeks ago. We are the only civilized country that does elections in the modern era and in the modern world that doesn't have a voter ID requirement. And I'm not talking about all countries that are just friendly to the U.S. I'm talking about in the developed world, in the West. Europe, North America, South America, all of your most modern cultures where they vote for their leaders, all of the countries have a voter ID requirement except us. Why is that? Why do we reflexively say, no, we're not going to do that? And I think that's what James Carville's saying. He's saying to the Democrats, look, the base wants this. The American people want it. Don't fight the American people on voter ID. Just get the voter ID law passed and then move on to the fight on the economy, spending, whether or not you want the military to be involved in things. Go on to the other fights that there are some distinguishing characteristics between your base and the other base, because going into this election, and he's not wrong on this, friends, listen to this. If he goes into, if the Dems go into the election in November and their message is, we're going to stop voter ID, just think about what message that sends to people who are actually, they're not like psycho conspiratorial worried about clean elections. They just think that there's been a lot of questions about elections in the last few years, and they just want some proof that the elections are valid. Voter ID law fixes that. And so that's why you hear President Trump talking about the Save America Act. Here's all that it does. Let me break it down for you, particularly those of you that were educated in Missouri. Let me break it down for you really. I was born in Missouri. Stop it. Don't send me email. But if you're as dumb as me, let me break it down for you. The Save America Act is simple. It requires that when you go to register to vote, you bring either your birth certificate or your passport or your state-issued ID that says who you are and where you're a citizen of. That's a bona fide, verifiable document issued by the United States. When you register, that's when you register. That's not at the day of the voting. That's when you register. So whenever you register, you take that, and when you sign your name, and now they shoot the little picture of you with the little webcam, so forth. Then they've got the proof that you are an American citizen. Now, that's part one. Part two, and this is the only other part of the act, is that then when you go to vote in the elections, you bring an ID with you so that you can verify that you are that same person that registered on that day. And if you take a piece of ID with you when you register, and then you show up at the voting place, don't you have your driver's license on you? How do you get there? If you're taking public transit, don't you take your ID with you in case you're out and around? You got to say who you are. Like I have a disabled son who's from another country who came and got American citizenship, and he doesn't live with me. He lives nearby, but he's African American. He's on the spectrum big time. He'll never have an adult reading level. He has an ID. So for people to say, "Whoa, well, it's very racist to say that you have to have ID." No, why is it racist to say? And you know who doesn't think it's racist? All my black friends. You say that to them, they're going to say, "Why do you say that?" Well, because people have a hard time getting to. Why? Why would they have a hard time? Because they're black? Oh, they must be dumb. They can't read. They can't fill out applications. They can't do simple things because they're black. If that's your excuse, Democrats, for saying no voter ID, you're the ones who are being racist. It's the soft bigotry of low expectations or maybe no expectations. But those arguments, even James Carville said on his podcast this week, and he's a Democrat activist. He's like heartbeat of the party. He says, don't fight this. Pass the voter ID law and then get on to the things that you really disagree about. because the voters don't disagree on voter ID. They think voter ID is legit and should be something that is implemented. Because, and I find this to be true too, I talk to people on the left and right all the time. I have friends in both camps. Everybody wants clean elections. Everybody that I know. Now, there may be some party bosses here and some activists there and some other people in places that may not. But on the ground level, everyday Americans that I live next door to in the very blue state in which I live, people want voter ID. They want sound elections. They want to know that their vote was honest and counted and isn't being canceled out by somebody who shouldn't have the right to vote. And the fact that we uncovered 278,000 illegal people, non-citizens that voted in the last election should be concerning. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. We've got a huge show. Patrice Onwuka, Liana Graham, and Michael W. Smith in the spotlight. Don't go anywhere. It's That Kevin Show.
Back to That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. It's That Kevin Show, and every single week we try to keep our pulse on a lot of different areas of public policy and what's going on, but seems like the front page is occupied by one primary overriding issue these days, and that is what exactly is going on with Iran, what exactly is America's role, and where do we go from here? Andrew Harding is joining us from the Heritage Foundation, one of my favorite organizations. Andrew, for all of the memorandums of understanding, for all of the ceasefires, for all of the embargoes and then embargoes being lifted, it seems like the IRGC has decided that it's not going to learn a lesson from any of it, and it's going to push America to be more aggressive and more hostile than we want to be. Where do we go from here? What's the plan at this point?
Well, thanks for having me, Kevin. I think you're right. The IRGC is completely messed up with the Strait of Hormuz in the sense that it continues to fire missiles at vessels, and the president has made very clear these actions are unacceptable. His preference has always been diplomacy, but of course, if Iran's not going to negotiate in good faith, he has correctly made clear and has made sure the U.S. has the right posture to respond militarily if necessary, to impose costs on Iran, and to show that it is more costly for Iran when they take these strikes, rather than it makes sense in their interest to work with the United States and find a deal. So where we go from here is, first, we're going to see continued U.S. military strikes. We've seen that over the past 3+ days at this point, because the president's indicating he's no longer just going to focus on retaliation, but he's escalating. He's making sure that costs are being felt to bring Iran to the table. But secondly, I then expect on the economic front, we'll continue to see the United States have this blockade now come back in place and see the oil sanctions or the general waiver on sanctions be withheld and no longer be put in place because Iran, once again, is not following the MOU. And finally, we'll see if this transits into diplomacy. The president, of course, wants this to be the preferred path. He's consistently wanted this. But until Iran shows it'll come to the table, we'll see the military and economic components of Operation Epic Fury return. Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Completely understandable and completely consistent with the policy that we've laid out. How does that register here? It's going to see another spike in gas prices. We were hopefully on our way to, under $3 a gallon before the elections. I don't know that that's possible if we take this route now. And here's my problem with where we're at. I believe the IRGC is as dangerous as what we have been believing them to be. I also kind of treat them as bullies that kind of kidnapped an entire country and kind of are, using through diplomacy and even their kinetic tactics as hostage takers. They are daring us to injure the civilians of Iran, which we have no interest in doing, and yet these guys couldn't care less if they all die.
You're right. The IRGC is exactly the point you're making here. They're willing to sacrifice the security, the interest, the people of Iran in order to continue trying to maintain leverage in the Strait of Hormuz, or really just try to complicate what the United States is doing. That's unacceptable. And I think the president's made very clear that these types of behaviors will not go unpunished. And that's why we're seeing this change in which the president, on one hand, he's being consistent, like you mentioned, that he wants diplomacy. He's made clear from the start, all the way back in February and even earlier, that he prefers to negotiate his way through this. And he showed if Iran will come to the table, he will negotiate in good faith. That doesn't mean it's easy, doesn't mean it'll be done within 2 months even, but he will negotiate, he'll try to find a deal. But Iran has showed to the IRGC that they're going to try to maintain leverage to the Strait of Hormuz. They'll try to keep it a threat, fire missiles. They don't have to win it conventionally. Of course, the U.S. Navy can easily maintain that fight. But rather, what the IRGC will do is just fire a couple of missiles to scare off vessels from transiting through the strait. That alone gives it some leverage. So the president's making clear that is unacceptable and will impose costs. And you're right, he doesn't want to bring these costs to the Iranian people. The focus here is on the regime that continues to engage in terroristic motives, seeks to still have an interest in a nuclear weapon, and wants to hold the Strait of Hormuz hostage. Those are unacceptable provisions that the president is pushing back against.
It's one of the most complicated scenarios I think we've ever engaged in, because we really are trying to protect their population from the monsters that are in charge. Let me ask strategically on the strait itself. We've noted where the missiles have come from, and we've taken out a number of launch points where they have shot the missiles from. Do they still have a variety of places that they can do that from? How many more of those do we have to take out before we've eliminated their capacity to harass the strait in any way?
Part of the challenge can be with geography, in which the IRGC, of course, and we are hitting these sites in which they do have stationary different missile sites where they can launch these missiles, but they also have different mobile sites. And this is something the IRGC recognizing that they won't be able to beat the United States in a pure conventional, force versus force fight here. Rather, they have to employ different types of tactics. So that includes using the mountainous terrain, being able to put missiles into different holes, into mountains, to maneuver different launch pads around in order to try to keep the fight going. And that's the problem, in which the U.S. is doing an excellent job in degrading Iran's ability to fight. That is true. But as long as the IRGC can fire a missile or two once a day, twice a day, you name it, onto these vessels, that alone is going to cause different, understandably, private companies that don't want to risk losing their ships or their product from having these transits. So that is the challenge here. So I think the president is doing everything he can to impose costs across the country, degrade the IRGC's ability to fight, to communicate, to control and continue its operations, ultimately putting enough pressure to where the regime is forced to come to the table and comply. Otherwise, the cost will only continue to ramp up.
Well, I think that's always been his key, right? Is negotiation in one hand and constant pressure on the other, kind of maximize pressure. That's what we did previously. And it seems to be something that they really don't like. But again, when someone's willing to sacrifice their own life, it seems to me like they're almost impossible to negotiate with. And as far as I can tell, every one of these IRGC goat-herding monsters is fine, just sacrificing their own life for the greater cause.
You're right. It is very complicated. This also goes into how there's different factions within the regime, to where you have those that are more willing to negotiate, a little more realistic, as the president's made clear, those that are a little more public-facing.
Oh, you mean the people that don't want to die?
Well, there are some that are more, they have to face the public more. They have some political process that forces them to be a little more reasonable. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. And again, that's part of this negotiation. It's the point you made at the start. This is the start of an MOU. We've different things going back and forth, what the status is, what's the deal is, but the MOU is a starting point that those that are willing to negotiate began with. The IRGC doesn't have that interest. They're not constrained as much by the economy, by the public will. They're able to consolidate resources and fight. They're a little more isolated from some of these costs. Hence, the president is speaking their language more right now. He's focused on the military component, forced them to understand that they cannot fight, they cannot win, and ultimately give some of that leverage to the diplomats who are willing to negotiate more and see if there's a deal. But finally, just because there's a negotiation doesn't mean there may be a deal. The president's made clear he's not going to pursue a bad deal. He only wants a good deal that protects the United States.
This is a game that they've played over and over for the last 47 years. And this is where I think when you say things like this is the beginning of a memo of understanding, that worries me. Like, at this point, I'm kind of like Churchill. Unconditional surrender. You guys are done. You don't get any more power at all. You got to turn it all over to the civilians. and what happens. Otherwise, we take out every single IRGC person that we know. And I'm pretty sure we've got maybe like 10,000 Mossad agents that are in Iran that know where most of these guys are at.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for everything related. It's all there, TV show, the podcast, the columns, everything that we do in one place, never behind a paywall. Always want you to have access to it. One of the things I like to keep my eyes on and keep the pulse of is what's going on in the culture. And within the last 24 hours, I've had 3 people say, well, Gen Z thinks this way. And I always think it's interesting that people who monitor such things come up with ideas about what future generations are thinking. Sometimes it's based on research, sometimes based on stuff they hear or see on Instagram. But is any of that good? That's what Liana Graham takes a look at for Heritage on a regular basis. She's a research assistant for the domestic policy department there. Heritage, one of our longtime friends, and we love talking to the folks. Liana, your first time to be with us. Thanks for coming on board.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited for our discussion.
Gen Z women and marriage. What do they think?
Wow, that's a big question, and there's so much there in terms of the answer. I'll start off with an NBER working paper that recently went viral on X that talked about how the iPhone was found to contribute to a large decline in fertility between 2007 and 2011 for women between the ages of 15 to 44, which started an entire dialogue online about the role of the iPhone and how that possibly could be the case. And obviously, there are a lot of theories. I don't think it has to do with the actual phone itself, the radiation or the device, but probably due to, one, the structure of the technology and the kind of relationships or lack thereof that it inspires, and also the kind of content that that technology tends to platform, particularly on social media. So that's something I've been looking at, one, in terms of a personal interest, but also because I was raised on social media. I have seen a lot of the messaging and the narratives. And so in family policy or just in marriage culture more generally, what we've seen is this sort of paradox where women seem to report that they do not believe marriage and family would make their lives better or happier. 1 in 3 women believe that marriage would be significant for their well-being and future achievements. Whereas the studies actually show, surveys show that married women with children are twice as happy as their unmarried peers. So there's a discrepancy between what young women believe marriage will do and what marriage actually does in terms of our lifetime satisfaction. And obviously that warrants the question, why is that the case? My theory is that a lot of it comes down to social media messaging and cultural narratives that have degraded marriage and family as a low status option for women.
Well, it's interesting that we're having this discussion because just this morning I saw a clip on Instagram of, speaking of social media, of a highlight from a CBS, mornings on CBS, whatever the show is. I don't watch them, but I saw a clip come in. And it was a guy giving a report on the change in the tone and language of the most popular songs in the culture. And it looks at the last 60 years. And whereas, in the olden days, you had songs that opined for lifelong love and eternal commitment and a love that grew deeper and deeper. In many of the most current pop titles, you have betrayal, breakup, immorality, deception, getting even, vengeance. And the list is like twice that long. I just can't remember everything off the top of my head, but it was like this real shift in this kind of genre of music that's primarily listened to by females. And it was one of the commentators made the observation, I wonder what else that's affected. And I think that this is buying into part of this mentality of can lifelong love, can marriage even be found? Can it even work? So you're telling me Gen Z is pretty skeptical of that.
Yes, and in particular young women. I think what you just noted is extraordinarily interesting. I've noticed that too in a lot of the movies that are watched and songs as well. And that's actually a term that some people have talked about recently in some discourses called heteropessimism. It sounds like a fancy kind of jargony term, but it basically just means that there are a lot of young people who are like losing faith in relationships, traditional arrangements, marriage, etc. So I think there are a lot of young women in particular who feel that fear. I think some of it is reasonable, insofar as there are a lot of negative portrayals of relationships and marriages that have gone awry, not just in our media, but in our own personal lives, like with the divorce culture of the 1960s and 70s and 80s, what it was like for children growing up where not only maybe their family members got divorced, but people around them, their friends, they grew up in the ruins of a good marriage. And so we see this like cyclical effect too, that the kind of values that parents bequeath to their children, not just in terms of things that they say, but what they embody, ends up having a huge influence on the things that children end up ultimately evaluating or valuing as.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for everything. Follow me on Instagram, That Kevin Show, TikTok, That Kevin Show, Facebook. That you get it. It's That Kevin Show everywhere. It's super easy. Hope you'll check it out. Liana Graham is back with us, and we're talking about the view that modern women have towards marriage, specifically Gen Z. And a couple of things strike me, Liana, because the data that you're telling us is that they view marriage different than what marriage seems to produce in their life. I'm also reading studies from other groups that say that the Gen Z generation is also like more aggressively spiritually hungry, going to church more, like they have an increase in church attendance over several generations that precede them. So what's really going on in the heart of these gals?
Wow, that first of all, the whole thing about the spiritual revival of Gen Z, number one, it's true, it's happening, but there's a bit of a caveat there. It's a bit more nuanced because it seems that this is more particularly pronounced amongst young men. And as far as I understand, I just heard Al Mohler speak.
That can't be bad, by the way.
Yeah,
you get more honorable men, and if we convince the women it's okay to marry them, you might actually have good families.
It's a very interesting dynamic that we're seeing right now. Al Mohler spoke recently at Heritage. He gave a wonderful talk about why young men are turning to religion. So if any of your viewers are interested more deeply in this issue, I highly recommend that they go watch and listen to that. But one of the things he noted was that this is actually one of the first times we've seen in church history where men are outnumbering women. Throughout church history, women flocked to the church, and that's because of the dignity they saw Christian ethics ascribed to women, particularly in like the 2nd century. Yeah. So that's number one. This is part of a deeper divide I think we're seeing amongst young men, between young men and young women. Men are flocking to Christianity, and it's not just any Christianity, okay? It's traditional Christianity. It's either Roman Catholicism, Eastern Orthodoxy, or Reformed Protestantism. And I think that is emblematic of a yearning, in particular from young men, for something real. That's what Al Mohler talks about in his speech, that men want a tradition that honors ontology, or in other words, reality. People who can say that a man is a man and a woman is a woman and a man cannot become a woman. These basic ontological truths are affirmed. And there's also a connection deeply rooted to our history. I think we feel like we are part of a grander and deeper story in the context of the church and in recognition of our history and traditions. So on the other hand, you see women are becoming more secular, more progressive, more skeptical of marriage and family. And part of that is because of the lies I think that are told on social media. If you're familiar at all with Elizabeth Gilbert, she wrote Eat, Pray, Love, which became a best-selling book, which ultimately became a movie that influenced an entire generation of women. Honestly, I could write a dissertation about that movie and that book and its downstream effects on society. But she recently appeared on a podcast, Elizabeth Gilbert, and she made the claim that that married women, to become married, she says, is statistically speaking the worst decision a woman could do. And all of the comments, this video had millions of views, millions of comments, or millions of views and hundreds of thousands of comments. And all the comments were saying, amen, Elizabeth Gilbert. I would never get married. I would never do that to myself. Wow. And the thing speaking, statistically speaking, Elizabeth Gilbert is empirically wrong. Like, married women, statistically speaking, are wealthier, happier, and report better lifetime satisfaction than unmarried women. And so again, this plays back into why the discrepancy between these perceptions and reality. Part of it is like women are actually being lied to about, statistically speaking, what is accurate, as is in the case with Elizabeth Gilbert. But the other side of the coin is messaging that marriage will significantly limit our life choices, and in so doing limit our like autonomy and self-actualization. It's just a false view of human nature. It's a false view of freedom, which says that the most dignified life is the life that allows me to pick up my backpack and go to Europe for a summer just because I can. It's a false understanding.
But Liana, what world, what universe does that reality actually exist? Like, if you're talking about actual human beings on the planet right now, it's less than 1% of 1% that have that level of financial freedom and ability. Mm-hmm. So the vast majority of all the rest of us are in that middle to lower end somewhere, mm-hmm. that are having to struggle through life, work on things, get things done, achieve, accomplish stuff. And here's the part that always fascinates me with what you're saying, is that the feminists, and I'm talking about the modern feminists, the feminists of the 60s and 70s, not the classic feminists of the 20s and 30s. I am a classic feminist. I am an anti-modern feminist. But the modern feminists try to convince people, specifically women, that their life choice is going to be hurt. They're going to have fewer options, et cetera, et cetera. They completely leave out what the biological, relational, developmental realities are of what it means to become a mother, number one, and all of the significance and meaning that that brings to one's life. We've taken this idea that if I'm just feeding babies and making dinner and just, you know, organizing a home, that there's something wrong with that I'm supposed to be doing more in some way. Mm-hmm. I think we lose all of the value of mm-hmm. what it means to shape those lives, those people that are literally growing from you, that God made in you, that will go out and impact the world somehow. And we've lost the whole ability to talk about what the significance and the dignity and the meaning of that experience is, because somebody would rather come home and turn on their own lights in their 1-bedroom condo in the middle of Midtown, as opposed to be part of the, you know, what the man says.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, what you've just highlighted to me brings to mind a paradox in terms of what young women say they want and what they actually end up doing. And I think the best example for this, there's a pop star named Olivia Rodrigo. Mm-hmm. She was recently interviewed by Vogue, and she's 23. And Vogue asked her, okay, Olivia, do you see marriage as part of your near future? And she jokes. She says, what am I, a child bride? She's 23. By the way, I got married at 21, so I don't know what that would make me in her book. But a lot of people focused on the fact that she said that and said, look at Hollywood and celebrities, like the typical anti-family, anti-marriage messaging. True, but what's most interesting to me about that interview is actually the sentence that comes right after her saying, what am I, a child bride? And the sentence right after is, but I want to be a mom more than anything. Well, whoa, hold on. So we're joking about young marriage, but you're saying you want to be a mom more than anything. This actually tracks with polling. Surveys suggest that if you ask young Americans how they see their 30s, they typically say the typical stuff like career, education, climbing the ladder, all those things. But if you ask them to project even further out into their 60s, 70s, 80s, most people will say, I want a future where I'm surrounded by grandkids and family members. So it seems like Americans haven't lost the value of family in theory. What's going on is that we're not able to apply it in practice.
For more of That Kevin, next. That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
He's the second most selling Christian artist in all of history, with over 45 Dove Awards, 3 Grammys, and more than 20 million units sold. Back in the new music spotlight for the first time in 2026, Michael W. Smith.
Come to the table and pull up a chair. The lost and the lonely are all welcome there. And all the empty, the weak and afraid, come on in and be filled in Jesus' name. Break the bread and lift the cup. Fill your broken heart with love. For every hungry one, he will always be enough. 'Cause heaven's here and now, and God is here with us. Break the bread, lift the cup, the body and the blood. With love, for every hungry one, he will always be enough. 'Cause heaven's here and now, and God is here with us. Break the bread, lift the cup, the body and the blood. Break the bread and lift the cup, the body and the blood.
That's his newest. It's called Hymn for Communion, and I have a feeling it's going to have a legacy in lots of places where people observe communion. Kevin McCullough, it's the Saturday edition. It's the weekend edition, I should say, of That Kevin Show, and a lot more straight ahead in hour number 2. Don't go anywhere.
Hey, get the soundtrack. Search hashtag New Music Spotlight on Spotify or Apple Music.
I used to believe everything I'd see on the news, but that's before I discovered a brain.
A brain is meant for everyday use. Those living with moderate to severe stupidity have seen immediate improvement in common sense with a brain.
I thought the government had my best interests at heart, and then a friend told me about a brain.
Talk to your doctor about what news sources you obey. A brain may also lower your desire to take life-altering advice from celebrities.
Getting lectured about my carbon footprint from people with 3 private jets used to make sense. But thanks to a brain, now I can think for myself every day. When my disregard for 3rd grade biology began to flare up, I knew it was time for a brain.
Do not try a brain if you're allergic to a brain. Common side effects may include accountability, discernment, homeschooling your kids, a better understanding of economics, awareness of the stupidity of socialism, and diarrhea.
For tethering yourself to reality, the only no-brainer is choosing a brain. Ask your doctor if a brain is right for you.
For more information, visit tryabrain.com.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Votes.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Still to come this hour, back to school tips from the Big Beautiful Bill to get your kids ready for the fall already. Patrice Onwuka from Independent Women will join us. Bibles for those who can't get them with the Bible League and Michael Woodworth. And a little bit later, back in the spotlight, it's Michael W. Smith. And now from Times Square, he may not be the crusty Cajun himself, James Carville, but he's just as grumpy. And at times, he's half as articulate. Here's Kevin.
For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. A newly released memo reportedly shows that the Biden administration anticipated leaving the Trump administration with an immigration crisis long before Election Day, which means it wasn't a border policy, it was a housewarming gift. Nothing says good luck in your new job like millions of unresolved problems and a note that reads, "We meant well." Meanwhile, oil prices are climbing again as the Iran conflict continues to simmer. The good news, gas prices are only going up. The bad news, so is your blood pressure every time you pull into the station. Former Cowboys quarterback Tony Romo was reportedly arrested in Wisconsin on an OWI charge. Fans immediately asked if he'd been analyzing his own arrest afterward. Jim, here's where I think the officer is going with this traffic stop. In New York, Zoran Mamdani is once again telling wealthy residents they need to pay their fair share. At this point, Manhattan billionaires are checking Zillow in Florida so often the website has started sending sympathy cards. And finally, Sean Diddy Combs has reportedly been moved to solitary confinement following a prison fight. Prison officials say it was for safety. Somewhere, a recording executive just whispered, "Now that's an exclusive contract." For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough.
When people die or buy a pine condo, as I like to say, they all watch a highlight reel of their lives in order to give an account for it. Their fate is already determined based on whether they put their faith in Jesus Christ or not. But whether they get to relive pleasant memories or 400 hours of their battle with IBS, well, that part is entirely up to me. My name is Nick, and I am Heaven's highlight reel editor. Every morning I get to work and go over all the upcoming expirations for the next week. Then I get started pulling their best memories into the timeline. Ironically, we acknowledge the Darwin Awards up here. Everything is recorded by the eyes in the sky, or cherubim, as Ezekiel calls them, so we don't miss a thing. Oh, you thought nobody saw you smear that booger under the armrest? I have 100 angles of it. But honestly, sometimes your best footage comes from just tapping into someone's Ring camera. That said, most of the edits I do for the living impaired are childhood, marriage, family, yada yada, which is kind of boring. So I try my best to pack some of their action memories in there for them. I also like to sprinkle in clips that are little passive-aggressive reminders of their stupidity. Like, hey, remember that time you got into a submarine the size of a Fiat? Or, surprise, you've been lied to. Part of the fun is choosing the music for the video. They tend to like uplifting and inspiring sounds. However, they hate it when I use AC/DC. If I'm feeling generous, I'll do an AI celebrity voiceover too.
Here's when you had the diarrhea parasite.
I did get in trouble once though for using too many creative graphics. They were so creative, HR wanted to see them.
Fatality.
Once I've completed a life's edit, I'll send it over to Gabriel to cue it up on the projector. The only issue I ever have is when they live to 100 or have a lot of life accomplishments. And then the file size is like 700 terabytes. Jimmy Carter's really slowed down my computer. Alternatively, those with no life accomplishments are very small files. On a positive note, I won Best Editor again this year at AA. Angel Awards. I am the only editor up here, but still the best. I've only had this role for 10 years now. I used to be a guardian angel, but the hours and the stress level, it all depends on who you get, of course. But a Red Bull athlete was my last straw. I have loved being the highlight reel editor, I have. But with some of the lives you people are living, y'all are gonna be disappointed in your reel.
Stop misgendering me!
Like, what am I supposed to do with this?
The Jews. Who are they? What are their intentions with us? The Jews were thought to have first come to Earth on a spaceship many, many years ago, the crash landing of which killed the dinosaurs. They then framed an asteroid for the dinosaurs' death, starting a prejudice that lasts to this day. After murdering all the really cool dinosaurs, what the Jews did next is not fully known, but some records remain.
You'll notice that most of the Bible focuses on the Jews. Even God recognized that these are people you need to keep a close eye on. And somewhere in the back of this thing, it talks about a Jew that the Romans put to death, and 3 days later, he came back. Just imagine it, an unkillable Jew. Truly terrifying.
But where are the Jews today? Legend has it they made themselves a lair somewhere in the Middle East, surrounded by warring Muslims, so no one would dare go there and find them. And yet it's said they still cause problems here in the US. Here is Carl, an online expert on the Jews.
The Jews are just out to get us. They're the source of all of our problems. They're the reason why I don't have a job, why I don't have a girlfriend, and why I say really stupid things on the internet. And why I smell bad.
You do smell very bad.
Because of the Jews.
And why do you think they're doing this to you?
I don't know. They're just mean, I guess.
Not to doubt Carl, though he did smell very bad. We set up cameras in his home to see if Jews really were the reasons behind all his problems. And what we found may shock you. So why are the Jews like this? What do they want from us? What do they gain from causing everyone so many problems? To find out, we were able to secure an interview with a Jew to find the real truth. So why are you all after us? What is it that you actually want? Hello, I'm trying to talk to you. What? You're not a Jew at all. What the? What? That's my van. Ever get that strange feeling that the world's hatred of Israel is starting to feel a little familiar? Like humanity found an old dusty scrapbook labeled Bad Ideas We Promise Never to Repeat and said, hey, I love those bad ideas. Let's update the graphics. Why This Time is Different is a documentary that looks at Israel, prophecy, history, and the world's sudden talent for pretending ancient hatred is just brave political commentary. It's not an end times panic button. It's a serious documentary with enough historical deja vu to make your grandfather's newspaper tremble. Watch Why This Time is Different today. Because when the nations start chanting the old slogans with new hashtags, maybe it's time to pay attention. Check out Why This Time is Different today.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. Back to That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. It's That Kevin Show, hosted today by That Kevin McCullough. But next week, I'm going to have, a little time away, and on one of the days that I'm going to be gone, my next guest will be sitting in for me as one of my guest hosts, and I'm so excited that she gets to do it because I've wanted her to have this chance to be my guest host for a long time. Patrice Onwuka is the Vice President of Economic Policy at Independent Women, and one of my favorites at Independent Women, though that's a dangerous thing to say, Patrice, because I like all you ladies. You all do such important work. And I had to submit the list of who was going to get to sit in for me to my lovely bride. And she gave you the biggest thumbs up that, that you could get. So you're double approved all the way through. So I hope you have fun next week sitting in for me. There's a lot that you're working on, and we're going to start hearing this phrase back to school a lot over the next 45 days. So there's some things that came out of, I'm thinking it's the big, beautiful bill. There's some things related to tax holidays and other things. Just kind of what do we need to be thinking in terms of back to school right now?
Absolutely. Well, the back to school shopping season has already kicked off, and I actually did a selfie video.
See, moms know this. Dad's clueless. Wouldn't that be like the week before September? But no, moms are like mid-July. It's on.
Not anymore. Literally, I was in Target, and some of the shelves have already been cleared off of the school supplies. So we at Independent Women, we wanted to get ahead of the curve this year, and we have put together a week-long suite of information for parents, particularly moms, but all parents, on everything from that checklist of financial tools for your kids' educations to where are the sales tax holidays. We've got about 17 states that are doing them this year, and we've got things around data privacy and also excessive screen time, because that's one of those issues that a lot of schools are dealing with and parents are grappling with. So what you can do about that.
So let's start with the shopping, because that's where it all kind of begins. And I do notice that they start these sales earlier and earlier. And how can we best maximize that kind of idea with the tax holidays, et cetera?
Well, first off, you need to figure out when your state, or even if your state has a sales tax holiday. They vary. Maryland, where I live, for example, has a 2-day sales tax holiday. It's in late August, unfortunately, when, frankly, most people have already done their shopping.
All the picked over stuff is gone, and you just have the crumbs.
You just have a couple of highlighters left. So that said, we have a full resource on our website of every state and the dates and the items, because some items are, are tax exempt. Some states are just reducing the taxes on backpacks and rulers and clothing. So it's good to figure out what your state is doing, if they're doing anything. But I mean, frankly, the first place you go, Kevin, is in your closet. Last year, you probably brought a lot of extra school supplies, and they haven't been finished. The kids maybe have a couple of highlighters or a couple of glue sticks. Gather that stuff together, figure out, okay, this is what I have, and then now make your list based on what you need and head out there. You could go online. Amazon Prime Day is gone, but that was also a big time. I think over the next, I would say, week or 2 weeks, you're going to see a lot of sneaker sales and a lot of clothing sales. Frankly, to get ahead of I think some of the shopping sales holidays, that a lot of them are in August and over weekends. Florida, with the exception, Florida gives you a whole month of sales tax holidays. So, again, Florida is a leader when it comes to
keep talking about stuff like that. More of my people are going to move there.
Yeah, exactly. But sales taxes are a good thing. Sales tax tax holidays are a good thing. And I think we should be nudging our policymakers to cut our sales taxes in general.
So was there anything that that the federal government did this year in the big, beautiful bill that are assisting families in this season?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So when we think about our financial checklist, there are 3 things that every family needs to start thinking about. Number one, that Trump account. I believe I was on to talk with you about those Trump accounts. If you had a baby that was born between 2025 and 20, or will be born before 2028, the end of it, you get a $1,000 grant right into a Trump account. But every child under the age of 18 can open up a Trump account. Very simple on your phone. I did it for 2 of my kids already. It took me about 30 minutes. You need a social security number for you and your child and a current address. And they're able to match that information back to tax records, which is really important to cut fraud, the opportunity for fraud. But these accounts are IRA accounts. You can contribute, the money grows. So everybody needs a Trump account for their child. 529 plans, those are also a complement to Trump accounts. These are typically state-based accounts, but you can use them compared to the Trump accounts, which are just used for, when your child turns 18 and after. Mm-hmm. 529 plans or K through 12 education expenses. And the One Big Beautiful Bill actually expanded the types of expenses you can use your 529 money for. So now you don't just have to be, it doesn't have to be private school education. You can have homeschool, and you can get your homeschool curriculum, your books, your online materials. All of that can be used through your 529 plan. So that was actually another great change out of the One Big Beautiful Bill.
Is the 529, is that what they referred to as education savings accounts?
ESAs, similar kind of thing to 529 plans.
Okay, what does 529, why was it established?
It was a way for families to be able to have some school choice when you think about it. So it's really money that you could put aside for education that is not traditional public school, tax-free, exactly. And so your 529 plans can be used for college, or it can be used for those expenses from kindergarten all the way up to the 12th grade. And they've been expanding in what you can use them for. And I think that flexibility in 529 is really great until your child becomes an adult. And so that's what we're seeing, some of those additional changes to meet the different types of students where they are and how they're learning.
Where do you apply for the 529 plans?
Typically, a lot of states have 529 plans, and some investment companies you can also open them through that vehicle as well. But you put your money in there.
But it's not like a Trump account where you got to register with the government.
No, different from a Trump account.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. Well, there's a lot of people that, this comes up every year, but the cost of childcare and preschool and post-school and all the rest. What are some things you're encouraging families to consider as that relates to the school year?
Well, some kids are not quite ready for kindergarten. They're preschoolers, or they're just babies. And so, look for the different options that are available. You've got daycare, you've got in-home care. For some people, hiring a nanny and a babysitter is a great way to do that. By the way, the One Big Beautiful Bill takes off that Venmo tax that was being attached to, any.
Was that insane or what? Like anybody that made more than $600 in gig earnings had to report it. And I got so irritated at having to, every time we paid a babysitter, like go in and fill out the extra information about, like, I just want to pay the babysitter and send her on her way.
Well, that's all part of it. I mean, for a lot of families, childcare is not just sending a child to daycare. Childcare could be you're working remotely for a couple of hours, or maybe you have a babysitter for a few hours while you're taking professional meetings. And so, it's important that we don't think that just a subsidy is going to solve the childcare problem. It will not. When you force more government money into something, you actually find fewer choices that you really want, and then it raises the cost for everybody. So we kind of talk about the fact that childcare is expensive, not because there isn't enough subsidies, but because of too much regulation.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. It's That Kevin Show. Patrice Onwuka is with us from the Independent Women's Forum. What you were just saying there at the end of the last segment was so spot on. And it also spoke to kind of like the minimalist idea that the left has about both Americans and the American economy. Because they thought the way to grow the earnings of the federal government was to go in and find all these gig workers that supposedly weren't paying their taxes and try to milk out, these every last dime they could get from these people. And it was basically like, how can we take more from what's there instead of thinking, how can we open up the floodgates of earnings? How can we make small businesses more profitable? That mother who's opening that small business, who might depend on a babysitter, might make both herself and the babysitter more wealthy if she's able to launch the business idea that she has, and the earnings off the business and the taxes that come from the prosperity will far outweigh the next 3.5% you're going to get from the babysitter for that 2 hours of watching her kids. And it always spoke to me, Patrice, as kind of this backwards way. Like, it was very obvious that the Trump administration, the 4 years before, saw the opposite potential. They said, let's make the economy white hot. COVID aside, that economy that he had in the first year and a half to 2 years of that first term, it literally went white hot in terms of how revved up it was. The Biden team, which was mostly an Obama administration, comes in and reverses all of that progress, and then says, now we're going to, drill down and just really put the screws to everybody that we possibly can. And that depresses America's prosperity and even the optimism of trying new things.
Well, when you look at business formation, small businesses, I'm not talking, the coffee shops, but I'm also talking about people with their computers at home, or the mom who decides to start making cookies in her kitchen and sell them online. We have seen an explosion recently in small business formation. People are getting into creating for themselves, in part because of AI, both maybe because they worry there won't be opportunities, but more because AI has made them more efficient, and it's easier for them to be able to do a lot of the tasks that they would have had to.
But the regulations have been reduced too, and that's normally the environment in which small businesses thrive.
Exactly. So deregulation, when you cut the unnecessary burdensome regulations, and right now the Trump administration, they have a rule for every one new federal regulation, you have to cut 10. They have maxed that out, and I believe they're right now at about 25 regulations out for every new one implemented in the Federal Register. That's amazing, because now that's saying we're unhandcuffing small businesses in America. We're saying to you, if you have an idea, if you have a dream, if you have a passion, go run with it. The government doesn't have to be a stumbling block in the way. And so, I mean, it's a different ethos, but it trickles down into how regulators at every level, from your local government to the federal government, are treating the businesses that are out there, the gig workers that are out there, the small entrepreneurs, the people who are just side hustling, dropping off groceries just to, make a couple extra $100 for their family budget. All of this happens because of deregulation, so that innovation can move forward and that entrepreneurial spirit is unleashed in regular Americans.
Well, and the other thing that happens when regular Americans are successful is that private charity and giving and everything else kind of goes up.
Rises.
And you don't need government to take care of all of the social services, because you have private organizations that are actually much more efficient and better at it, being supported by people who really believe what they believe. And everything goes the wrong direction when government takes and takes and takes. Shifting gears just for the remainder of our time, you mentioned that the independent women have this back to school series of things that are being published at iwf.org, and you mentioned how to help manage screen time. And I will tell you, my kids, they are on screens all the time. In fact, when you were talking about binders and stuff, I'm like, we probably got like 2 years worth of binders in the closet somewhere, because now everything's on the Chromebook, and they get issued one, in whatever year they start. I guess my daughter's going into 6th grade, so she'll get her first Chromebook, and she'll have that assigned to her probably until she's through high school. So this is it's a new age in terms of screen time. So what do we need to know about how to help manage it?
Well, first, parents, you have to be really active when it comes to the screen time at home. But we're also working on what happens at the screen time in the school level. So at home, some tips. First off, you can set limits and time limits through your computer, your app, your phone, and directly in the apps as well, so that they shut off, they stop working.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com. All of the videos, columns, podcasts, everything that you need is right there. My social media. And most importantly, a way to give Bibles to those who need them through the Bible League. That's the big banner at the top of the page. And I just want to brag on you. Thank you for the last 4 months making my website, That Kevin Show, the most trafficked website of all of our syndicated guys at Salem. That's great. Now I just need more of you to just click that button and help Bibles get to people who need them, because that's what's on my heart the most right now are these Christians who are without a Bible. Michael Woolworth is back with us. And Michael, I went to church. So we have a very interesting church because we have 3 services on the main campus and 2 services on the satellite campus. And then we're on YouTube every weekend as well. And sometimes, if someone's not feeling well, they can still see the same sermon at home. But I got up and I took my oldest to church this Sunday, and we're going through a study in the book of Psalms. And we got into discussing why having a copy of the scriptures is beneficial, not beneficial, because they put scripture up on the screen. And it kind of just occurred to me that if you don't have a church that projects the Word of God on the screen, if you don't have smartphones, if you don't have the internet, maybe if you don't even have electricity, you're in a situation where you're studying God's Word based largely on what? Just someone saying it out loud.
Right, yeah.
And as our pastor was like, okay, let's take a look at this verse, and everybody's head moved to the screen in the corner of the room, I thought, well, that's interesting. That's how we look at the verse now in North America. That's not how they do it in the places where Bible League is at.
Well, we've got a lot. We got a good thing going here, don't we? Right. First of all, it's a religious, freedom. Right. We can gather, we can worship, and again, Kevin, I still like to hold an old-fashioned Bible, if you will. Right. I do see people on their phone apps. My church doesn't project the scripture. I wish they would, frankly. But anyway, there's a lot of ways you get the scriptures here in America. But you're right. These are not options for the Christians we're talking about. If you're deep in the bush of Africa, if you're high in the Andes Mountains, again, these are not options for you. In fact, even providing the Bible for these believers is we're doing for them what they cannot do for themselves, right? And that is, again, to get a copy of the book that will tell them about the God who loves them. And so you and I have had the opportunity. Kevin, thanks for being such a great friend of Bible League. You have asked your listeners for more than 2 decades without any hesitation to be a part of what God is doing. And then I can't say enough about this listening family, again, giving so sacrificially over the years. As I've said, we have friends at Fun Trips that allow me to meet with our end users, right? Pastors, evangelists, lay people, just Christians in general on the receiving end of the studies, the Bibles that you provide, right? And when I see people sing, dance, sometimes they're silent. They just clutch their Bible. There's a sigh of relief, right, that they now hold God's precious word. I can't help but think of this listening family that's given so sacrificially over the years. So again, keep it up. We want to do this for just north of 10,000 waiting believers that we know by name at Bible League. People like Florence of Kinnaman, New Jersey said, I'm in. Richard of Somerset, New Jersey said, I want to be a part of this. Thanks to Robert of Thornwood, New York. I mentioned this earlier, a $300 gift to take care of putting Bibles into the empty waiting hands of 60 believers that we know by name at Bible League. And I know so many of you say to yourselves, I love my Bible. There's no doubt about it, right? And then God has used his word to grow me. I simply want to give that privilege to others. I do want to take you to Rwanda, Africa. Kevin, this is a part of the world that has known incredible pain and loss, but healing and joy is coming to that country. My colleague Anton went into that country. He said, Michael, it's 32 years after the Hutu-Tutsi conflict, almost 1 million people killed over the course of 100 days. He said there's memorials, people still mourning. He said grieving the loss of their loved ones. And so he went into that country. He said, I met with a woman by the name of Dali. Her story was this. Her husband, her son, murdered in the midst of all that terrible genocide. She lived with unforgiveness for many, many years, but God did something very special through the words of Jesus on the cross. This is my colleague Anton in Rwanda, Africa.
Estimates about the loss of people in those horrible times range from 500,000 to 1 million over the course of just a couple of days. But yet people like Dali have seen it with their own eyes. Her husband and one of her sons were killed, and she just couldn't forgive those who killed her loved ones. True forgiveness only came when she learned about Christ's work at the cross, about which she was reading in her Bible. So she recalled that Jesus asked his Father to forgive those who punished him, and because of Jesus saying those words at the cross, she is now able to forgive those people.
Yeah, having a Bible, being able to open that, reading the words of Jesus in her own Swahili language meant what? Dali was able to what? Find the grace and the gumption to move, not on in life, but to move forward in life. And people in her little village, Kevin, there's 300 adults in her little village. They're in Rwanda, Africa. And about a third of those had said yes to Jesus. 96 people have said yes to the Lord. They say, look, if you can find the grace and the gumption to forgive those that brought this incredible loss into your life, they say, what? We want this Jesus. So 96 people, you can round it up to 100, have said yes to Jesus. They've all come through this weekly Bible study from Bible League. They are eager to grow in grace. And again, they're praying for God's precious word today.
1-800-YES-WORD is the number, friends. We need you to call 1-800-YES-WORD. Our goal is 10,000 Bibles. We're at just over 500 right now, trying to close in on the first 1,000, and your gift of any size helps us get there. Take the amount that you are feeling convicted to give, divide that by 5, that's the number of Bibles you're giving, and multiply that times 12, that's the number of people you will be reaching. Based on 89 years of research, we know that the average Bible League Bible brings 12 people to faith in Christ. That's just an amazing reality for 89 years. So if you want to have a huge impact today, for the cause of the gospel, to help people understand who they are before God, give a gift to the Bible League. A Bible League Bible causes that to happen in ways that other things just don't. 1-800-YES-WORD, 1-800-YES-WORD. You can also give online at thatkevinshow.com. Click the Bible League banner at the top of the page. Real simple to do, thatkevinshow.com, and the Bible League banner at the top of the page, or just call 1-800-YES-WORD. And either way you do it, it's going to take about 2 minutes to give your gift, and then those Bibles will be on their way.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, wrapping up this edition of That Kevin Show, Michael W. Smith.
Morning rush, rising heat, crowded road, shuffling feet. Suddenly, there's a chill, hammerings from a hill. Violent scene, angry words. He gets what he deserves. Crushed and marred, middleman. Mercy flows from his hands. Mercy flows from his hands. I see heaven touching earth, every drop of matchless worth, redeeming love, what gain, what loss, crimson dust beneath the cross. crimson dust beneath the cross. Day so dark and pain so real. Tender flesh torn by steel. History turns around. Holy blood falling down. Holy blood falling down. I see heaven touching earth. Every drop of matchless worth. Redeeming love, what gain was lost. Crimson dust beneath the cross. Crimson dust beneath the cross. Holy, holy, holy. Jesus, Lamb of God. You are holy, holy, holy. Jesus, Lamb of God. You are holy, holy, holy. Jesus, Lamb of God. You are holy, holy, holy. Jesus, Lamb of God. I see heaven touching earth. Every drop of matchless worth. Redeeming love.